Welcome, Victor and Matthias from Synthesia. And to give everybody context, we are going to jump into a video that's going to give a nice preview about what Synthesia is all about.
Hello, everyone. Great to see you all for this exciting session of Data Driven. Before we jump into the fireside with Matt, here's a bit of context on Synthesia from Victor and Matthias. We recently partnered with FirstMark Capital to accelerate our vision of replacing cameras with code and building the world's leading platform for synthetic video. The next iteration of the digital economy will be driven by video and interactive experiences. But current methods of video production are expensive, time-consuming, and don't scale. At Synthesia, we have reduced the entire video production process of film crews, studios, actors, and cameras to a single API call. On our platform, anyone can create professional-looking videos directly from their browser in minutes. Since our launch, we have generated more than 1 million videos and served thousands of customers in more than 40 countries. Our customers use our text-to-video platform to create training and marketing content for customers and employees. We're building an application layer that allows for video content to be programmed with computers rather than recorded with cameras. With our API, you can personalize and generate videos automatically, enabling entirely new video experiences that was never possible before. If you'd like to try out our platform, you can make a free video on our website. See you soon and enjoy the session.
The whole idea here is that the technology is able, you type in something and then you create those avatars, which for now are based on real life actors, but you have the ability through AI to make them say things in a bunch of different languages with expression and all the things. So this is at the intersection of voice and computer vision and all the things. Maybe walk us from an AI perspective. How does that work? Like what is this based on?
Yeah, so a lot of the origins of this research actually comes from computer graphics from the movie industry. So when you're having like an actor that has a stunt double or something like this, you have to virtually replace, edit the faces, edit the actors. And the movie industry has been, over the decades has made successive progress in order to make it easier for editors, for artists, and to mitigate the effort there. And kind of the thing what happened in the last 10 years, let's say in the last, 10 years, like a lot of things in AI and deep learning have happened. So traditional graphics methods have been augmented with AI methods now, and this has become a lot easier. So you have now generative AI methods like generative adversarial networks, and these kind of technologies, they help a lot to make this process even easier than it used to be before. So instead of having artists and so on that manually fix like face replacements of actors or so, you now have an AI that does it all automatically.
Great. Do you want to remind folks what a generative adversarial network is?
Yeah, so the idea of a generative network is you show a network, for instance, a bunch of images of faces, and the network kind of learns how to create new images from faces, the kind of learning the distribution of existing people that the neural network has seen, and then you kind of can create new images that look like faces, but they're not specifically any of the existing observed images. And so there have been a lot of works around GANs in the computer vision AI history in the last 5, 6, 7 years. And now there's a lot of new stuff coming that you can actually make not just images out of it, but you can actually create full videos out of it and can make these things look very, very realistic. You can create very high resolution videos and make them pretty much indistinguishable from any real videos.
Very good. Maybe tell us about how you went about creating the specific technology at Synthesia. So taking this broad world of research and what came from the movie industry plus GANs, how did you translate it into what we see today?
So I don't know. I was always super excited about video games and movies, and I was very inspired by science fiction like Star Trek and these kind of things, where you had a holodeck and you can create virtual environment that look like real environments. So kind of the high level idea is you want to create holograms. And this is a really big challenge, of course, not just taking a 2D image, but take this kind of 3D hologram that you can later animate. So a lot of the research actually comes from 3D vision, so 3D reconstruction of people, 3D tracking of people, 3D face recognition, 3D face tracking, getting 3D models from faces. And traditionally speaking, this has been done with like standard 3D models. And now with a combination of these AI technologies now with deep learning, GANs, and all the things that I mentioned, this has become a lot more feasible now. And a lot of new opportunities have come, and we're actually getting close to making this dream of holograms reality. We're not quite at holograms, but at least we can create pretty realistic videos when you take text input.
Very good. And Victor, how do you guys connect? Maybe walk us back to the origins of the company and how the four co-founders, so you, Stefan, Matthias, and Lourdes, connected.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you the short version. I think it's most founding stories. It's a long, complicated story. But me and Stefan had worked together back in Denmark in a venture studio, like I think it's almost 10 years ago now. And we had a great energy with each other. I think we had the same level of ambition. So we kind of had a good partnership going on there, but we decided to go like two different paths. Stefan went to Zambia to work in private equity, and I went to London because I had figured out that I loved building things, but I was more passionate about science fiction technology than I was about building accounting programs, more kind of business tool type of software. So I went to London and I started working on AR, VR type of technologies, which I'm still very excited about, but I think the market is still growing. Let's put it that way. And during my work there, working with these AR, VR technologies, I met Matthias. I had also spent some time at Stanford. Matthias spent some time at Stanford. And I sort of started looking at these technologies like face to face with Matthias's, I think, probably most well-known paper in the space of like what we're doing. And I just got very interested in like how these AR, VR technologies, 3D computer vision, deep learning, had kind of hit an inflection point where they went from being super cool, but now also super useful. And we saw that with things like Oculus, for example, which I'd say in large part was driven by advances in these fields. And I got very excited about the idea of applying that to video because video was already a massive market. The video economy is growing. You don't have to convince anyone that video is going to be a big market. And I think when I saw that paper, it was kind of a glimpse into the future. And that's kind of how we started talking. Professor Lourdes Agapito from UCL was also someone that I had been involved with quite a lot. And we just got really excited about this idea of creating technology that would make it easy to create video for everyone without having to deal with cameras and actors and studio equipment every time you want to create a video. So that's kind of how it all came together.
And we saw a glimpse of it in the video at the beginning of this conversation, but can you elaborate on what the product does? So you took those broad, impressive capabilities in AI and turned them into an actual software product. What does it do?
Yeah, so Synthesia operates and is building the world's largest platform for video generation. On our platform, you can essentially create kind of real professional video directly from your browser. So we have a web application that I think you had a glimpse of before, which is very simple to use. You go in, you select an actor, which could be one of the stock actors that's built into the platform, or you can upload yourself with 3 to 4 minutes of video footage. You can then create videos by simply typing in text, right? So that's the kind of fundamental idea. You type in the text of the video that you're creating. You can use our editor to add images, text, sort of PowerPoint style of creation. You hit generate, and in a couple of minutes, your video is ready. So creating these video assets has gone from being like a super unscalable process of having to deal with cameras, actors, studios, expensive equipment, assets that once they've been recorded with a camera can't really be changed, to something you can now do basically as a desk job. So that's the kind of core product, and that is used by two distinct group of customers. We work a lot with the Fortune 1000, and we work a lot with individual contributors or individual creators. The core idea here is, I think this is something that people sometimes mistake from the outside. Our platform is not really a replacement for traditional video production as you know it with like a camera, right? It's actually more replacement for text. That's the big thing here. What our customers are using our platform for is taking all of their communications, primarily in learning and training right now, and they're still creating like hero shots for the most important pieces of content, but for all the long tail content that lives as text, they can now make videos. So if you imagine you're a warehouse worker in a very, very large technology company, for example, and you have to be trained on COVID guidelines, sort of company update. For by far most people, video is a much better medium to communicate with than a 5-minute PDF, a 5-page PDF. So that's kind of the core use case of our platform today.
Very good. And so that's learning, and so the use cases are mostly B2B enterprise. Your platform targets large corporations around the world. And so you, just to double click on this, some of the use cases are learning and training, where people need to learn to be able to do their job, and also onboarding. That's correct, right? Across different industries.
Yeah, for sure. I think from a general perspective, video is a much more effective medium to communicate, even more so in a remote world. And what we're seeing our companies use is all these kind of things, which traditionally would be text, right? Which could be like onboarding documents, manuals, training and learning. Those are the ones that we're working primarily with right now. But we also slowly started to see the first kind of use cases with external content, like marketing, for example, right? Where you also want to have video assets instead of text assets. And then there's the kind of very interesting cross-section of those two, which I would call customer experience. We see that a lot here, right? So let's say that you're a bank, for example. You have FAQ, help desk articles, and you have a lot of them because you have a very complex product. For most users, they're simply not just going to read through a long page of text explaining how insurance works or how credit check works and things like that. And they're now starting to use videos generated on our platform to communicate those kind of things as well. What we also slowly starting to see is not just turning text into video, but data into video. So the big idea that Synthesia is built around, right, is that video production and media production in general is going to go from something that we record with cameras and microphones to something we code with computers. And once all of this production layer sort of been abstracted away as software, we could do a lot of new things with video we couldn't do before. So we can take data around a particular customer, for example, and make a video that speaks to them on the kind of gimmick level. Of course, this is like, it says your name, but the much more interesting level, we can, if it's a bank, for example, you can take data around, you know, how much money do you have left in your account? What did you spend your money on last month? And we can build these interactive short videos that is much more effective at communicating with customers.
And the key thing is that it's now provided as an API.
Exactly. I think, you know, we have a very strong belief that what we're building here is a foundational technology that's going to change how we communicate online. Right now, we're doing a lot of this sort of training stuff, but as mentioned before, the really interesting idea here is that media production will become code, right? And once it's code, we have all the benefits of working with software. It scales infinitely. It has more or less zero marginal cost. We can make it available to everyone. And the API is super interesting because it means that you can create any experience online that usually would be static or text, and you can make it interactive and video driven, right? Could also be. So I think like linear video is like one element of what we're doing right now, but the API part of it, of which we're launching our V1 of the platform in a couple of weeks, will enable a whole new space of opportunities, most of which we probably haven't really thought of yet, right? And I think this is what's so exciting about this space, is that I think that moving forward, this will make it as easy to create a video-driven website as a text-driven website. And I think that's going to have major implications for how we kind of go about the user experience online.
And for now, the avatars, like those speaking figures, are based on real life actors, right? Like you have a whole library of people. And then the idea is to then create synthetically avatars. So each company could have their own sort of like spokes figure type person. Is that the path?
Definitely. There's two streams here. One, which is already used by roughly 80% of our enterprise clients today, which is that you can create a real avatar of yourself. That could be someone from the leadership team or management team, for example, or it could be someone who's like a brand representative. This process is something we're working on scaling a lot right now. It is quite an easy process today, but we definitely believe that we're all going to have a digital representation of ourselves, that kind of an avatar of ourselves that we can use for creating video or maybe even Zoom calls, stuff like that in the future. So that's one stream. It's like taking you and making a digital version of you with your voice. You can speak any language. You can do PowerPoint presentations live. You can maybe even do these conferences one day by just typing in text. And then the other stream of it is what we think of as synthetic humans. So this is where you can, some people might have seen the meta-humans approach from Unreal that came out recently. But this is essentially where you go in, kind of like when you start a computer game and you create a character. You can brand that character with logo and put on, a hat if it's a fast food chain or whatever you want to do. And then you can create these kind of artificial characters that can represent your brand. And that's also quite interesting, right? Because that allows for a whole new level of diversity and different types of people representing your brand rather than like just one face of the company, which is generally the case today.
Yeah. This feels like a good place to address the obvious question around deep fakes, which, to be precise on the definition, means taking somebody's appearance without their consent and creating video content to make them say something that they never said. So this is, can you maybe walk us through how you think about this, both from a technical and definitional standpoint, but also like as in general from a sort of ethical perspective?
Yeah, sure. So this is obviously like a really powerful technology, and I'm sure everyone in this audience is familiar with the concept of deepfakes, as you just explained it. I think that with all new technologies, they're kind of, especially if they're very powerful, they pop into the world, and we're immediately very, very scared of them. The fear here is definitely real, right? And these technologies will be used for bad, for sure. For us, there's kind of a few guiding sort of principles around how we can minimize the harmful effects of these technologies. So one is sort of inside of Synthesia, ensuring that our tech is not used for bad. That is relatively easy to do because our experience is sort of fully on Rails. We're building an identity verification and things like that. Outside of our platform and what we're working on, I think there's a few interesting things to mention here. First one is education. We've been able to forge text and images and other forms of media for the last 30 years. And while people definitely still get fooled by text or images, we all have some kind of embedded understanding that not everything you read online is necessarily true, right? We need to do the same for video. One part of this is obviously, doing kind of media stunts, and we've done a lot with Beckham and Lionel Messi, for example, which is experience that can come out really broad to the world to talk about these things. But I actually also think that exposure of this type of media is the most important part of it, right? Once you start getting personalized birthday messages from David Beckham or Lionel Messi, for example, that's not real. That builds that sort of embedded sense of this new online world. And then the last one is technology solutions. So this is a very, very deep topic, obviously. I think the first one that people sort of latched onto is let's build deepfake detectors. Both Synthesia as a company and Matthias is working with a lot of the larger companies by sharing data and helping them with effort to build these sort of deepfake detection tools. And I think that might remove like the bulk of content that might be created, right? I think what I'm more excited about sort of long-term is building a provenance system, which is less about deepfakes in particular, but more about how can we build a provenance of media content and how it sort of comes out online, right? So a real example of this could be you're the BBC, you upload something to the internet. The first thing you do is you register it in a central database somewhere. I kind of hate the word, but this might be something a blockchain actually could be good for. And then you have a system on YouTube and other major platforms, which every time someone uploads a piece of video, sort of scans and sees, has this video or something very close to this video been uploaded before? And then we can build this like chain of provenance, right? I think I've usually explained this as like Shazam for video content, the app that can listen to a song and tell you what it is. If we could build a similar type of system for video content, I think that would take us a long way for the user to understand like where content came from and how it has been manipulated along the way.
One of the questions that came up in the chat, and maybe for either of you, is around languages. How many languages does Synthesia support, and how does that work behind the scenes?
Yes, we support 55 languages right now, and that is a feature that I think more or less all of our clients are using. And the way that it works is that we have a very broad selection of text-to-speech voices, which drives the avatars. So on the back end, that's how it works. The kind of core technology that drives our avatars is that we can take an audio signal, we can turn that into a video. From a user experience perspective, it really is quite easy. You have this text box where you type in the script. If you type it in English, the video will come out in English. If you type it in French, it will come out in French. If you type it in Italian, it will come out in Italian. So that's how it works right now. But I think the very interesting thing about synthetic media to me is that, you know, we're building this video synthesis technology, which itself is a very hard problem. But there's all these other technologies which are all complementary and will work as, I think, force multipliers in this space. So everybody knows GPT-3, of course. What's that going to mean for translation? What's that going to mean for automatic content creation and things like that? So I think right now that's how it works. But in the future, I definitely foresee machine translation becoming 10x better than what it is today, and then it'll be really interesting.
Very good. Matthias, what do you think is next for the space in terms of capabilities? What is AI going to be able to do in 3-4 years that is not currently able to do now or not well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about the space. I mean, both as a researcher, as an entrepreneur, both is super interesting. So I think, I mean, AI, like, in a sense, it's become more a tool right now already. So you see AI is like, you know, typically basic math, what you had learned in high school. This is what AI will become from an educational perspective. So there's a lot of people, basically everybody in computer science right now learns basic AI. So with that knowledge of people adopting and universities and so on, there will be a lot of progress on the research side and also on startup side, right? Like you're not unique anymore when you're using AI in a company at this point. You actually, basically, you have to use it just to compete with the massive scale of data and these kind of things. In terms of the actual things, what I believe the technology will go to, I mean, right now, I mean, if you're looking at this like Zoom call, I think it's still relatively limited, right? This is like from a pure perspective of communication, interaction, it's super limited right now. You don't have like full 3D views. It's far away from immersive communications like we used to from real life. So this is a big challenge, like how to make communication better, in a sense addressing mobility, but with virtual communication technologies. And the second aspect from AI as a much broader thing is from a language side, for instance, in Synthesia, we're using still text as input to generate videos. What's still pretty difficult is to automatically generate the text or to figure out, you know, how to have an automated avatar in a sense that could automatically, interactively reply and answer questions very reasonably. There have been a lot of efforts, but it's still very basic. Like these things are not far, they're just not at the level where you can, like, I don't know, have like a customer service fully replaced with AI. I mean, people try that, but it's just, you know, the experiences are not quite there yet. And there I see a lot of potential in the next few years. And for us as a company, I think there's tremendous potential in these lines too, right? You're going to see, at the moment, we're basically taking text as input. We're creating like a portrait avatar that talks to you. But in the future, we'll have way more capabilities of maybe having multiple people interacting with each other, possibly doing it, you know, in real time, having more emotional parts in it, right? You know, and in the long run, what I see is you basically can generate a whole movie or something like this from just a book, right? So you're helping Hollywood in a sense, creating fully featured blockbuster films just by looking at some text. And this is kind of the high level vision. And I'm still a big fan of science fiction. I would love to see holograms become reality. I know we still need some version of a display, right? We need augmented reality devices or VR devices to do that. But from a pure image generation side or video generation side, like I would bet in like 3, 4, 5 years, there's going to be like this progress is even accelerating. If you're following the research community, even in the last year, there has been so many cool papers coming out from all kind of different groups around the world. And I don't know, if you're in the space, you can be very lucky, I think.
Fascinating. All right, to take one last question from the audience before we switch over. Let's see, so Matthias, you kindly answered a couple in the chat and people can take a look. It's a practical question from Alan. Checking your website, can we load our own images, videos to create bespoke avatars of colleagues or clients to create personal videos? You want to talk to the roadmap? Yeah. You alluded to some of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we already have, I think, close to 200 custom avatars on the platform so far. More or less all of our corporate clients are using it for exactly this purpose. The onboarding process is roughly 3 to 4 minutes of footage. We're working on getting that down to just a single image. And once that is done, that's a one-off process. Then you can create videos with yourself on the platform, and you can use our API and our Zapier integration, for example, to very, very easily create personalized videos for clients or colleagues or employees. That is definitely like the core use case right now.
Great. All right. Well, that feels like a great place to finish. Thank you so much. Obviously, as an investor, I'm incredibly excited in what you guys are doing, but I think for everyone, this is absolutely fascinating, a glimpse into the future, but very much the present as well, right? It's it feels like a clear case of the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So this is one of those moments where you see something that is going to be very prevalent, but it's just starting. So wonderful.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. Thanks, Victor and Matthias. And
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks
Awesome.
a lot, man.